Welcome everybody here to Skybox Studios here in the land of Sideline Power with Ballin with Bill here, and we have a wonderful person here today, a longtime coach, great player, Andy Means. Great to have you here today.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Hey, when we start the show, we always like to start at the beginning. So, kind of tell us about your boyhood and how you grew up and really got started in football. Because I know you played a lot of football and had a great career. So I just kind of hear about that first we go into your coaching world.
Well, I grew up in Holdridge, Nebraska, middle of the state. Played football, basketball, baseball, ran track because we didn't have spring baseball. And just loved playing sports. And then got a chance to walk on at Nebraska, and I was able to do fairly well down there. And then I always wanted to, there's some guys that love to play the game and some guys that love the game. And I just loved the game of football. And I love playing it too. And so I knew I wanted to coach, knew I wanted to teach, and it just kind of came natural for me. And so after college, I went to Grand Island for a year, taught 7th grade at Walnut Middle School. Left there after a year because they didn't have any high school positions open. I helped with their secondary the first year, but I really wanted to be in the high school. And so went to a little town called Cedar Bluffs by Fremont, Nebraska, and coached and taught there for 3 years. And then they were afraid the school might close. There was some land between Fremont and Cedar Bluffs that Fremont kind of wanted for their district, and so it was going to the courts, and our superintendent said, I don't know what's going to happen. And so I applied in Millard, and I've been at Millard South ever since.
Good. So now because you had quite a football career, because you played that time the university was on top of the world. So tell us about your experiences there, because I know you had a great career in the secondary for them. I remember you playing in back there and doing a heck of a job, and you guys got to a lot of Orange Bowls, and you played with some great talent with Remington, and so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I went as a non-recruiter walk-on.
Oh, really? I thought you were recruited walk-on.
No, I was non-recruiter walk-on.
Okay.
And made the freshman team. And then what happened was Monty Kiffin was the defensive coordinator.
He was still there at that time.
And he left right away.
Went down to Arkansas, right?
Went to Arkansas. Yeah. Warren Powers had left to go to Washington State. So they brought in Lance Van Zandt to teach the coach secondary and be the defense coordinator, and then Charlie McBride to do the defensive line.
Right.
And I remember when that happened, my first spring as a freshman, we had 37 defensive backs that went out to practice.
Wow.
When we started the fall practice that year, we had 13.
Wow, that many left after spring ball.
14 of them quit. Yeah.
Holy cow.
And so I was a red shirt, and as a red shirt, all you're doing is practicing. But I took it as, I was going against Nebraska's offense every day.
Right.
And so
heck of an offense in those days too.
And so I was learning. Plus, I'm young for my age, so I was still developing. I got in Boyd Epley's program, and hadn't really. I mean, we lifted weights a little bit in high school, but not real organized. And so after my redshirt year, we did winter conditioning testing, and I ran a 4.440, average 4.4.
That's dang good.
And,
that's impressive.
I went out to spring practice, had a good scrimmage, the first scrimmage, because it was easy for me because it was going against the same offense I'd gone against all fall. Some guys there, when they're redshirted, take it as like it's a wasted year. But I didn't, and so I recognized, I knew receivers, I knew their kind of habits and everything, and I had a good scrimmage. And then I went to the South Stadium on that Monday, and one of the graduate assistants was standing outside, and he said, I want to talk to you before you go in there. I thought I'd done something wrong. And he said, I just want to tell you, you're going to work with the first team today. And I really thought I was going to alternate with the guy that it was the first team the first week of spring practice. But then I go out there, and he's with the second team, and I'm going, okay, something's going on here. And I had a pretty good spring. And at the end of the spring, Coach Osborne offered me a scholarship.
That's awesome.
And then went on. my very first game was against Alabama, September 2nd, 1978, and they were ranked number 1. It was in Tuscaloosa because at the time, or at Birmingham, because at the time, for some reason, Alabama played part of their games in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Now it's the Birmingham Bowl, but it was the largest crowd in that stadium to that point, and it was quite an experience. My very first game on national TV, and at the time there was no ESPN.
Playing one of the top team, yeah.
It was national TV.
I mean, everybody
saw the game.
Yeah, yeah.
And so just went on and had a fairly good sophomore year and was honorable mention All Big 8, and then my next year I was second team All Big 8, and honorable mention All Big 8 again, and then academic All Big 8. So it was quite an experience.
What were the biggest games you played in, besides that?
The Alabama game, we played Oklahoma when they were number 1. So we played 2 number 1 teams that year. We beat them 17-14, and then for some reason there was a quirk in the schedule, and we had to play Missouri the last game of the season, and that never happened before. And I still don't know to this day why it was that way. They never really said why.
Yeah.
And we went out and we got beat 35-31. They had a lot of guys that ended up in the pros. They were
was a real good team.
There was a really good team. James Wilder and
Phil
Bradley,
heck of a tight end. When that
Kellen Winslow was in the Hall
they
of
were
Fame.
loaded. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we got beat. We went to Orange Bowl. We had to play Oklahoma again, which was kind of a downer. And then we got beat by them in to this day, Barry Switzer said it's the best team they ever had, and we beat them, and it still bothers him.
When you beat him at home at 17-14, I remember that. Yeah,
17-14.
Because he had what was his backfield that year? That was you had
Billy Sims and David Overstreet, and Thomas Lott, and Kenny King.
Talk
I don't
about
forget them because I had to tackle all of them.
Because running that triple, they were coming 1, 2, 3, weren't they?
Kenny King was around. I hit him, and holy cow, it was like hitting a brick wall. And so my junior, nowadays they talk about the preseason for a lot of these college teams. They're playing, what used to be Division I AA teams and that kind of thing.
Right.
And the Big 8 overall wasn't real strong, but Missouri usually would have a good team. Oklahoma State would have a good team. But we played that year, my first year as a sophomore, we played Alabama. We played California the second game. We played Hawaii the third game in Lincoln, and no one could ever figure out why we were playing it in Lincoln. Why did we go to Hawaii? Yeah. And then the last game we played Indiana, at Indiana, and they were undefeated, and we beat them at Indiana. The next year, when I was a junior, we played Penn State at home.
That was the one that won the line, wasn't it?
No, that was in '82.
Okay.
This is in '79.
Okay.
The first time we played Penn State, we played them at home.
That's when they had Matt Millen on the team.
Yes.
Yes.
Played Utah State that year. We played Iowa that year.
Yeah.
Beat Iowa. And then the next year for non-conference, we played Penn State, we played Iowa, and we played Florida State. Got beat by Florida State at home. They kicked 6 field goals. Beat us 18-14.
That's right.
And it kind of...
And they weren't they one of the top ranked teams that when they came
They were just starting to be, yeah. It kind of vaulted them to where they started to be. That
Bobby
win.
Bowden got them going, right.
So we played extremely difficult non-conference schedules.
Yeah, you did.
So people say the Big 8 wasn't that tough. Well, maybe it wasn't all that tough, but our non-conference schedule was a lot tougher than
you
teams
and
play
Oklahoma
now.
always played a very good non-conference schedule.
And then Oklahoma had to play Texas obviously every year, but and Oklahoma would play Ohio State, I know, and some of those teams. So, so that's kind of the way it was. And then had some concussion issues, and so I got called by Dallas on the day of the draft. They were going to draft me in the 4th round. We discussed my concussion issues and decided it was best not to do it. And so then I really kind of focused in on the teaching and coaching thing, which I really, really love. I mean, I could tell right away when I started to do it, it was what I wanted to do.
What did you learn from Nebraska that kind of helped you in your coaching career? Because you're around. I mean, I look at all those coaches: Tom, Boyd Epley, like you mentioned, strength training, and then you had, Charlie McBride, I think one of the best defensive minds in his time too. Of course,
Oh yeah.
The other guy wrote the book on cover two.
Yeah.
The first guy you mentioned,
Yeah.
he wrote the book on cover two with the linebacker dropping back into three all the time. That was his Monty Kiffin. His son's coaching now. So you're around a lot of very interesting people. What did you take from that helped you in your coaching career?
Well, people like to compare me to Coach Osborne, which is not true. I mean, he's way up there. But what I saw in him and what we all saw in him was he was the captain of the ship. He didn't yell and scream, never swore. He would get upset once in a while.
Dagnabbit, right?
Yeah, but it was, you could see it in the later teams as well. Even those teams in the '90s, we just never wanted to let him down. We just never wanted to let him down. It was more almost winning for him than it was for us. Mm-hmm. And when we lost, we felt like we let him down. Mm-hmm. And so, but he was very much the captain of the ship. The assistants were more the emotional ones, yelling, screaming, and all that stuff. And so I've kind of seen that is that the players, kids I coach, they want somebody. They want to know there's somebody driving the ship. There's somebody in charge. And so I try to keep my emotions under control. Sometimes
you do a pretty good job, Coach.
I've been on the
sideline a few times with you.
But that's what I learned from him is just that calm kind of strong leadership. Mm-hmm. Just the aura that he was in charge, but he didn't rant and rave and scream about it. The other thing I learned is from playing there is just you can do all the fancy stuff you want, but if you can't block and tackle, it doesn't do any good.
No.
Those are the two fundamentals of the game, and I tell the kids all the time.
Yeah, very
if we're building a football building, those are the two foundation blocks. You got to block, you got to tackle. If you can do those two things, you're going to win.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of other stuff, catching, how to hold a ball, and so forth. But if you can't block and tackle, it doesn't do a whole lot of good.
No.
And
I agree with that.
And so we really try to stress fundamentals a lot, because like one of the things we've done recently is one of the days we have 4 tackling stations, and that's all they do is tackle. But they're different types of tackling stations to kind of emphasize that tackling part of it. So those are kind of the things that I've learned. And the same thing when I was at Grand Island as an assistant coach, Ken Fisher.
Ken's a great coach.
Who's a Hall of Famer and played at Nebraska. And
right.
Actually played when my dad was there too, with my dad. But I learned that from him too. Is he was all about fundamentals. Half the practice was just fundamentals, and so I learned the importance of that, because sometimes some coaches want to get to the X's and O's right away, and that's great. That's fine. You have to do that, but if you can't block and tackle, those X's and O's don't do much good. So
no, they don't. They look pretty on the board.
They look great on the board.
If you can't do
like
the
I tell,
basics,
every play works on the board.
Depends if that's the chalk glass.
Works every time on the board.
Yeah, or the marker, or whatever you want to call it nowadays.
That's right.
But
The whiteboard. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you go to Millard South. Was it Millard South or just Millard when you first went?
No, it was
there?
Millard South.
Okay, because North went into
Millard North
faction
was already
right
there. Yeah.
So how did you get started there?
Well, I got the teaching job and the coaching job, and I coached with Marty going. And Marty actually had coached in Grand Island. I'd heard stories about him.
His stories are sometimes legendary.
Got there, and he was unbelievable to work with. He gave us a lot of freedom. His favorite line was, if we suggested something, he said, "Well, if you think it's going to work, let's do it." And he was always very supportive. He let us coach, which is what I try to do with my assistants. That gives them more ownership in what they're doing, and he was one of the best defensive coaches. Even though he called offense, he also would help on defense too. He's one of the best defensive coaches I've ever seen. But I just started coaching, teaching, and then when he retired in 2004, I applied for the job, got the job, and been there ever since.
So when you first took over for head coach, what kind of changes did you make, or did you just kind of keep the boat rolling, or how did you adjust to your personality? That's a better way to ask it.
We changed the offense to more of a spread offense, which a lot of teams hadn't done at that time. But we kind of went to kind of a more open spread offense. Marty was more conservative, and defensively, we didn't do much different defensively, but we did offensively a lot. We were going to throw the ball a little bit more, send 5 guys out in the pattern, which a lot of high schools didn't do. Gene Papillion would do that, but it caused a lot of problems for the defense, and so that's kind of the main changes. We kept a lot of things that, because I'd been there already 18 years, so
You were there 18 before you became the head coach. Now, were you the D coordinator for a while too?
I was I called the secondary coverages.
Okay.
And then I was the head JV coach.
Okay.
So.
Okay. What kind of defense did you run when you first started?
Well, we ran a 4-2-5, because we had a lot of kids that were kind of in between linebackers and defensive backs, and so we had the 2 inside linebackers, and then the other kids on the outside were more of the in between guys. We had more of those, so we tried to fit our defense and our offense both to kind of what we had for kids, and it's just kind of worked out, and we've tweaked it from here and there. 2017, well, 16 and 17 both, but 17, we had a quarterback, Andy Reel, who could really throw the ball, but Andy wasn't a great runner. And so we morphed into more of an I formation. We had a running back that was really good, slashing type running back. And so the offense we have allows us to kind of morph to our personnel, and that's what I like about it. Defensively as well too, we can kind of change things a little bit to fit the personnel. I don't want to be stuck in a situation where the players don't fit the system, but we're stuck with the system, that kind of thing.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that we throw the system out completely. We alter it, change it, and it's worked out fairly well for us.
Good. So now, with the strength training that I want to get on that a little bit, with the strength training with the background you had at Nebraska, how did you implement that to Millard South? Because I know that's one of the things you do very well there.
Well, 2006, we actually.
Now I know you have a strength coach, but I'm talking back when you first were there.
Well, when I was first there, Marty was in charge of the weight room.
Okay.
And so he would do all the programs and things like that.
Yeah.
But we found that it was hard for us as coaches to be doing the weight room and doing all the other stuff we were doing. And so I suggested that we try to see if we could get a strength and conditioning coach. And we did, Trevor Rogge. And then a few years ago, we went down to Boyd Epley, and we didn't feel like we were progressing. We hit kind of a down cycle in the 2013, 14, 15, whatever, and it's just like something's not right. And Boyd suggested that we start measuring their muscle mass, how much muscle they're putting on, not how much weight, how much muscle they're putting on. So we've started to do that, and we also started to adopt some of their Husker Power stuff, more of it than we were doing before, and we think it's really, really helped us.
Good deal.
But we sat down with Boyd for about 2 hours, and he really, really helped us a lot. The guy started it.
I mean,
George
70,
Washington
71. I mean, he is the founder of strength training.
The founder of strength and conditioning. And
yes, no question. He wrote the book on it.
Wrote the
started
book
on it.
I got his book. He wrote the book,
Yeah.
and so we went to him, and he was really great. He said, "Yeah, come on down." And so brought myself and Trevor Rogge and 3 or 4 of my assistants. We just sat there, and it's really paid off benefit for us.
Because when I first started when I come back after Colts and Sandy, and Don made me the strength coach at UNO, first person I went and spent a day with was him and Mike Arthur.
Sure. Oh, Mike Arthur. Sure. Absolutely.
And they opened their doors, and it made all the difference in the world helping that program out. And they've done that for so many people. People don't realize what they did for so many colleges throughout and NFL.
Sure. Absolutely.
How many of those guys that went to school with you that are in the NFL still strength coaches?
Yeah. And a lot of the research that Boyd did, we were we were
your age.
We were the products of.
Yeah, you're the guinea
because
pigs.
we were yes. But we could tell at the time that he was doing things. He was trying to do things that no one else was doing, and so we kind of knew something was going on. We weren't sure what it was, but we knew that every year it seemed like there was something new he was trying and so forth. And basically, what it ended up is all of what he was doing, he compiled for what eventually became Husker Power, basically.
Right, because I think that helped really put that program on. I mean, I think they were good football, but that whole strength training thing and what he did with helping you guys become more athletic, more stronger, and adapting it to the sideline, to the football field on Saturdays, helped you guys always be there every year. I really did. I think you still got a good athletes, but you got to look at how he progressed them with the redshirt year and all that stuff. And it just kept you guys on the map every year in the national rankings.
Well, that's when like I said, when I got there, I was kind of young for my age, and so I was still growing and still maturing body wise, and so getting into his system, my speed went down and so forth, and that's I give him all the credit in the world because I was just doing what he told me to do.
Same with me. I mean, I was a 5'4", and then I started that program. I just took it what you guys were doing down there because we really didn't have a full-time strength coach in football.
Sure.
Back in that day, UNO, I mean, he was a rarity to have a strength coach at Nebraska. So
Very rare. Yeah.
So he, the coaches did it, but I would keep trying to keep up with what you guys were doing, and it took mine from a 5'4" to a 4'9" by my senior year. So I mean, I take my hat off to what he was doing down there.
Yeah, he was an innovator. There's no doubt about that.
So now you're coaching. So you look at your program and you've adapted the offense. What do you feel when you're, because you come from an I formation and now you're spread. How does that all? Because when I've been to your games, I couldn't go this year because of the situation. But when I've been to your games, it's amazing how much your stuff is still kind of choreographed with Nebraska, but it's just coming out of the different sets and stuff like that. How do you incorporate that? Does somebody do that, or do you still get involved with that? Or, I mean, because I just noticed a lot of things are similar, but it's done and it's spreading people out and keeping honest, and you give a defense a lot of headaches.
Right. Well, when I started as the head coach, Trevor Long, who was one of my assistants, came to me and said, "I think I've got an offense you're going to like," and I said, "Okay," and he showed it to me. I said, "Okay, and you're going to run it." And he looked at me like, "What?" And the thing I like about our offense is it's adaptable.
Yeah.
You're not stuck. Like I said, if you've got players who don't fit it, you're kind of stuck. We're not stuck. We can fit players in and out. We can move players in different positions and so forth, and we can hopefully try to utilize their skills the best we can out of that. And so we just looked at it that we did not have, at the time I started, we didn't have a real big, huge linemen. So our goal was, let's spread people out.
Right.
Let's make them defend the whole field.
Right.
And see what we can do. And it's worked out pretty well for us.
Because a lot of times, you spread them out, but then you'd bring them back in and run your option, or you bring them back in and run your counter and different stuff like that, which a lot of things that you ran, when you're...
We'll adapt and do what we have to do. Like with our quarterback this year, TJ Urban. TJ is a great runner. So what we did a lot of things to get him loose, because we knew once we get him loose, he's probably going to be gone. Yeah, and so that's really what I like about what we do. We're not pigeonholed into just we can hopefully cause some problems for other teams. With our ability to adapt and move people around and do different things out of it.
Gotcha. It's fun to watch your offense. It really is. You do a lot of neat things. I enjoy being an old offensive guy myself. So
we try to incorporate a lot of it. We try to incorporate option and incorporate some of the I formation, incorporate a lot of different things.
You see that. And you do a nice job with the passing game, because that's what I had my background in. And you did a nice job with flooding the zones and giving your kid an opportunity to read the protection. Read the secondary.
There aren't many teams that will send 5 guys out in the pattern, and we will do that from time to time. And so we see more of it now.
Oh, I think it's loosened up a lot.
Defending it, yes.
Yeah.
We see more of sending 5 guys out in the pattern. But at the time I started, a lot of teams weren't doing that.
Yeah.
And so it was giving defenses some trouble because they didn't really know how to defend that.
I think you and Gene were the first two to really do it in the state of Nebraska, trying to get 5 guys
Gene
out.
Sir was unbelievable at it. Yeah, he was. In fact, when I got the job and we looked at the offense, I said that's what I want to do. You know, I want to kind of mimic what he did because he caused a lot of problems.
Yeah.
He was an innovator at the time.
Yeah, he was, no question. So now, with all the changes, let's go back to defense where you played. You know, they're not always going to run right at you. You're going to get this one week, and you could play Bellevue West next week, where they're getting everybody out there at that speed and stuff. So, how have you adapted defensively with the change in times and everything?
Well, you're right. I mean, in high school, we don't see from week to week a lot of the same stuff.
No, it's different.
We play Millard North the first week. They're going to option. Play Elkhorn South second week. They're going to kind of spread it out. Millard West is more of a veer, ball control option type. So we see different offenses almost every week.
Right.
And so it's a challenge. And so that's another reason why I like our defense. Is it's malleable enough to change where we can put more people in the box if we have to. We can take people out of the box if we have to. We can do matchups a little bit better because we can move people around a little more than if we're just in a set defense and now they come out and we can't really defend it because we're set where we're at, and this player's always this linebacker or whatever, and so our offense kind of mimics our defense, and offense kind of mimic each other a little bit.
Okay.
We're both like I said, I don't want to get stuck in a situation where we're stuck. We want to have choices if we can, and that's why.
Don't limit your choices
Don't
on
limit
defense.
the choices. So, and again, now we're getting a lot more teams that are doing a lot more things.
Oh, I think
so
the
you have
Metro's
to-
really
Yeah,
opened up a lot.
it has
the last
opened up
10
quite
years.
a bit. Yes, it has. But still, every week you're going to get something
Well,
different.
because you don't have Fred, you still get the old Air Force offense, which is
you get it. Yes,
right.
and it's to his credit.
Right.
They run an offense nobody else runs. They run a defense nobody else runs, and playing them the first game of the season, we like to play the first game of the season because we got extra time to prepare.
Right.
But during the season, you got 3 days to prepare. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, basically. That's pretty tough.
Because that option's totally different.
It's
The way he
totally
runs
different. Yeah, it's totally different, and
Right.
and it's hard for high school kids to adapt to that. And he's, won 1,000 state championships doing it, and that's why it's hard to adapt to.
I know. It's. I think that would be the hardest thing. When I look back when you first started as head coach, I remember being up here when I came to Dana and going out and watching offenses perform. Other than you and Gene, and Fred shot the same thing, but everybody kind of ran some type of option, so you could prepare for the option. Now you're going to see Bellevue West does this, Westside does this. You're doing your thing. Fred's still running. Like you said, it's a challenge being a DC right now. I think it'd be very hard. That's a tough job.
It is difficult. It's difficult. It's difficult because the high school kids sometimes it's hard to get them to be consistent because if they're learning something or they've got different check calls or different things that they're looking at, different formations they're looking at each week, that's a challenge for them, and it's a challenge for us too.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I think a lot of the scores are high scores because it's hard for a defense to adjust to that in 3 days.
Yes. Because you got to be on the. And sometimes, what happens? You play Thursday too. I mean, Thursday night you may only get. You're coming off a Friday, and you got to be ready Thursday night.
You got to be ready Thursday night. So,
makes a challenge because back when you first
a lot
started
more
coaching, there was no
challenging,
Thursday nights.
and the other thing I think the special teams have gotten better. The kickers
Right.
have gotten a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
There's some kickers that we've seen the last few years that have been unbelievable.
Yeah.
What they can do,
Oh.
and so that's kind of changed things.
Oh yeah. Because now you got to play field position.
Now you got to play field position. Yeah, a lot of teams. When I first started, their punters were okay, but not good. Now
Put it up there.
The kid from prep put it up above the lights. You can't return those.
No.
Because by the time they catch it,
You better be fair
you
catching.
got guys standing around you ready to tackle.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've seen that too. We've seen an increase in the kicking games being better too, overall.
Yeah, I agree. I see that too. Hopefully next year we'll be able to get out to games every Friday like we usually normally do. This year was a little different.
I hope a lot of people are ready
That had to
come
be.
out
How
to
did you
games.
adjust to that? Because I mean, all these years you coached, and that had to be I couldn't imagine coaching in that situation that you guys all did this year. My hat goes off to you guys.
It's still coaching and it's still football, and we'll do it if there's one in the stand. We'll do it if there's 1,000 in the stand or whatever. But I felt bad for the kids because
I did too.
you know, the students at first couldn't be there. They got to be there the last couple of games, but not having the students there, not having the band there, it was a different atmosphere.
I bet.
It was not as it wasn't Friday Night Lights like it should be.
Right.
And so hopefully that'll change this year.
I hope so.
certainly
We get
hope
all
so.
back to normal.
I think everybody feels that way. That we hope it changes.
Okay, now we're talking to young coaches out there. With all the success you've had, and you've had an outstanding time at Millard South there. I mean, take my hat off to you, Coach. You've done a heck of a job. What recommendations or information or strategies do you offer these young coaches as they starting out that want to be a head coach like you someday?
Well, I think what I learned being an assistant coach was when I first started was I was in no way prepared to be a head coach. You really have to learn. You have to watch. You want to try to see all the things you need to do because there is a difference between being a head coach and assistant coach.
Oh, yeah.
And you know that it's there's a lot more responsibility, a lot more things you have to do, and I was really fortunate because I was able to take my time, learn from Ken Fisher, learn from Marty, and be able to. By the time I got the job, I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to do it, and so it wasn't as big of a transition as
Gotcha.
as it would have been. If I would have been 22 years old, it would have been a huge, and so I would tell young assistant coaches, just slow down. You know, the best advice I'd give them is just do the very best you can as an assistant coach. Learn all you can, go to as many clinics as you can, just soak it up. What's great about this game, and I've coached basketball, coached baseball. I had to coach swimming in Grand Island. Which
Did you really?
Well, when
How'd
I
you do
got
that?
hired, they needed a swim
Could you?
coach.
You ever swim before?
Well, I knew how to swim. They actually asked me in the interview, "Can you swim?" And I said, "Well, yeah. Why? We don't have a swim coach. We need you to coach swimming." But whatever,
That's a sport that.
yeah, whatever sport, whatever it is you're doing, or whatever sport it is, just do your job. Do the very best you can. Learn everything about it that you can. Like I said, be a sponge. Go to clinics. Talk to people, and that's what really was an advantage for me because I was able to sit back and see, and I learned very early that there was a lot of stuff I didn't know.
Right. Same here.
That I thought I knew.
Yeah.
But you find out that
Pretty quickly.
there's a lot of stuff you don't know, and so if you're that good, you do a good job. If you're an assistant, you'll eventually get a chance to be a head coach. But you want to be prepared. You don't want to go in there and be unprepared and get in there and find out you're over your head and so forth. You don't want that. You want to be able to be prepared and because the kids are counting on you. You know, the players are counting on you and coaches are counting on you, and so that's why I was okay with coaching with Marty because I was learning as I was going.
And he was a respected head coach.
And he was very respected, and he like I said, allowed me a lot of freedom to do things, and so I was learning along the way. So when I got the job, I felt a lot more comfortable about what we were doing,
Right.
because I'd had that experience. So,
Right.
But it's fun. It's unbelievably great when you win. I tell the kids all the time, you don't understand. After a Friday win, we as coaches are walking out of the locker room about that far off the ground,
Right.
because we feel like we've accomplished something. And yeah, you know, we'd love to get paid more. Everybody would, but the point is that in a strange sort of way that gives us that satisfaction, where we know we've done a good job. We've helped them accomplish what they want to accomplish that week, and there's no better feeling.
I agree.
There's no better feeling, but you know there's no worse feeling
You lose.
than when you lose, because you
But
feel
you grow
like
a lot from you lose.
you
don't
grow a lot from when you lose. You learn a lot from it,
Yeah.
but you feel like you in some way
So
let
it just
players
kicks you in the
down.
gut. Yeah.
You know, and where it was in Nebraska, I'm sure Coach Osborne felt like he let us down, but we felt like we let him down.
Gotcha.
And it's always a challenge, you know. You when the players win, you have to teach them. Listen, this was 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you won this week doesn't mean you're going to win next week.
Right.
And if they lose, you try to bring them up and say, you know, hey, okay, we didn't play well. Let's clean up our mistakes. And
True.
like Nick Saban says, it's a process. It's one play at a time, one day at a time, which is hard for young people. They
want it now.
They want it now. They want to think ahead, and you have to pull them back. And it's sometimes a struggle to pull them back. To know today, in practice, we have to make sure we get this done. We get better at this. If we do, then that'll take care of Friday night. I tell them all the time: you win games Monday through Thursday. You don't win them on Friday night. If you've done what you're supposed to do on Monday through Thursday, Friday night will take care of itself.
So Coach Osborne always said the same thing. I remember he always used to say that when he talked at lectures.
Yeah,
That's when you win the games.
that's when you win the games, and we try to be competitive during the week. We try to mimic as much as we can. The games are different than practice. We realize that, but you still have to get done in practice what you need to get done, and you know it practices aren't meant to be fun. You know, Coach Van Zandt used to say all the time to us, practices are fun for the coaches and games are fun for the players, and he was right.
Yeah.
He was right.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
That is a great way to put it.
He was right. But it's a great occupation. I love what I do, you know, the old saying, if you got a job and you don't feel like it's work. I don't feel right. I helped my dad's farming friends irrigate when I was in junior high and early high school.
That's a job.
And that was work. I've never told my wife or anybody that I'm going to work. I tell her I'm going to school or I'm going to football, because it doesn't seem like work. Because I just enjoy what I'm doing, and hope I can keep doing it for a while. And
I hope you do too, Coach.
But I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's an honor to have you on.
Thank
My
you
brother
very
always
much,
said, you know, my brother worked with you for a
Oh
while.
yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
something.
Oh yeah.
Always thought the
Yeah,
world
sure.
of you. So
Thank you. I think the world of him
you're a
too.
gentleman
Yeah.
and a good coach
Yeah,
and
he was
a
our
good
AD
teacher.
for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, you know I pro wrestled, right?
Yes.
So you probably missed it. I used to come out and I used to put my hand up like this and chase people around and ask for money.
I remember.
Ask for money and food, not necessarily in that order sometimes. But anyway, we finished the show with our hush. But anyway, Coach, it was an honor. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank
today.
you. Appreciate
And I
it, Bill.
appreciate you spending the time coming out here.
Thank you.
And all that.
Appreciate what you're all doing here at Sideline Power. And it's a local company. That's what we love about it. It's really impressive what you guys have done. And so, you know, it's I like talking about our program. I like talking about our kids and our school. And it's a good place to be. And
You've done very well from
appreciate
there.
it. Thank you very much.
You've done very well. Yeah, I'm going to take this a little bit of prop here. Put my hand up here, guys. Squint with that one eye. Here we go, Andy. Ready? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Thank you. See you next week.